Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another discussion video. Today I want to share with you guys my top 5 recommendations for rogue strategies you should be playing in July. This is more of like a preemptive suggestion list of rogue decks because these are decks I'm going to recommend to you, kind of hoping and basing off what I think and should happen on the ban list. This is more so you guys can get prepared to possibly shift into a new meta, because if a lot of the top dogs are addressed, I can see a lot of these decks doing very well. And even if some of the top dogs aren't addressed, I can see some of these decks doing very well. So with that in mind, guys, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video. And if you guys want to help support the channel, there are a million ways down in the description to do so. Each and every one is very appreciated. But today, if you want to buy or pre-order any of the cards you see in today's video, be sure to use my link in the description to TCG Player. It does help out greatly. That being said, let's jump into deck number 1. The first one I recommend to you guys is Gohan Icarus Boundless Friendship. I've been thinking about this a whole lot, and if Mega Frieza is nerfed in some capacity that is meaningful, I think Gohan Icarus has super huge potential to be the top yellow deck, not totally counting like what happens with the set 14 stuff, because we don't exactly know how that's going to impact the meta yet. But I think as far as yellow stuff that is currently in the game, I think Gohan Icarus has a chance to be insane. So here's what I'm thinking in terms of mecha. I've really been pushing for this leader to be banned because I think it's pretty unhealthy for the game, but because they're printing the Rebellu Silver Bullet in set 14, it's very, very unlikely they're going to hit Mecha Frieza. That's just what I'm reading off of that. But that doesn't mean Mecha Frieza won't receive a hit in some way. I think if Mecha Frieza gets errated to once per turn extra cards on the Awakened side like it has on the front side, I don't think it's going to bode too well for Gohan Icarus, because they'll still be able to keep up in hand size like Gohan Icarus can with Unite Assemble. And that's Gohan Icarus's like main appeal, is that it can draw an insane amount of cards without really relying on anything else. The only thing you need to draw is one of your 4 Icarus skillless cards, right? That's all you need to draw, and you will be drawing a fistful of cards. So with that in mind, again, if Mecha goes once per turn, I don't think it's going to be too great for Gohan Icarus, but if Unite Assemble is banned, which is the other thing that a lot of people are speculating is going to happen for Mecha Frieza, then I think Gohan Icarus steps up big time, because it will 110% be outdrawing Mecha Frieza. And then the only big thing that Mecha Frieza has compared to Gohan Icarus at that point is free Final Spirit Cannon and free Vegeta's Final Flash. But without like a super big hand and a lot of proactive plays to kind of back that up, I think Gohan Icarus has a really good shot of being a top yellow strategy. I think 2 new cards that really help the archetype a lot is 1, Power for Super Saiyan, which obviously helps every single yellow deck in the game, but now that Gohan Icarus has access to that, it's going to be really nice. Like Mecha Frieza being able to tap things for free when you activate extra cards was a great way to trigger Bergamo. Power for Super Saiyan is going to be really nice for Gohan to do the same thing. And then Bojack Pinpoint Onslaught. We all know the best way to play Gohan at this point is blue-yellow, and this card being a free combo as well as a free check land gives you essentially 8 free check lands when you also play Zamasu the Eliminator. So I think that's just a really awesome set of things that Gohan has going for it. Again, assuming that Mecha Frieza is dealt with appropriately on the ban list. You guys know me, I love this strategy. I put my heart and soul into it. But when Mecha Frieza is around at full power with all the cards at its disposal, and you're going to competitive events, not all that much reason to play Gohan Icarus. I do have a video where I talked about potential changes for Gohan Icarus going into set 13, and I will probably get a set 14 build out to you guys once we have the full scope of reveals and the ban list, so just keep that in the back of your heads. Next time we're going on a Cell Surge. Now this is one of those decks that I really think can do well no matter what happens on the ban list, and really no matter what comes out in set 14, because I think this deck is super slept on, even though it's been putting on really good results in this current format. I think a lot of what the deck does is just insane, and not that many people are really respecting it in best of 3. Not everyone's sideboarding Deborah Ritual at hand, so that's always gonna be a great thing for Cell Surge. One of the main plays that I think is just like really absurd that Cell Surge can do is right here on the screen here. So on your turn 3, right, a lot of times you'll do this in some order where you'll do like a rebrand, so you pay 2, make your opponent pitch 2, then you can awaken, untap 2 energy, play Dark Broly Overwhelming Evil, which is the best unison for this deck by far. So you play him, you can +2, make your opponent lose another card and a battle card, and then at some point throughout that turn you can play Demon God Deborah Dark Dominion using its activate main, discarding it, searching for a parasitic Dragon Ball, and that's going to trigger Dark Broly Overwhelming Evil's auto for when you remove a marker from it by a skill. Your opponent has to pitch a card, and that interaction right there is literally just like the most free form of hand destruction I've seen. Like, you've invested into your Unison, which is going to stick around, enable your free counter plays, this and that. And just by pitching a card that replaces itself, so you've lost literally nothing, paid no energy, your opponent then pitches a card and you can repeat that on the next turn. Like, I think it's just an insane form of hand control on top of what the deck can already do with like rebrands and other things like that. So definitely want to recommend to you guys that can, you know, it's kind of like a cockroach. It can survive well no matter what happens to the world outside of it, right? So I think it's pretty solid. Then we have Red Green Broly. Now this is a really cool one. I think if you guys have gotten the collection binders or if you've picked up your alt art leaders, I think this is a really cool one you're going to want to try. Obviously Piccolo Jr. Eradicator of Peace kind of puts the entire red green thing on its back, right? The card is just super insanely strong. There are things that do interact with it, but they're not all that popular in the format. Like yellow is not really maining a whole ton of giant balls right now. Dormant Potential Unleash is not all that popular of a card, so this thing can swing in pretty safely. And there are a few other niche things, but again, this card just puts its color combination on its back, right? One of the other really cool things I like about playing Surge Broly is that I feel like you can approach the deck very differently. And what I mean by that is I think you can charge like mono energy for like maybe the first 1 or 2 turns. And this is a deck that I think can really use the Warp Lands very, very well. The Warp Lands are a series of cards that when you charge them, they're sort of like the Check Lands, but you don't have to have any specific energy charged. You just have to be able to warp one of each color of the card from the drop area to charge it untapped. That's what we call them, Warp Lands. I think these are really, really good. I just don't think that, you know, multicolor has been the most pushed stuff lately. It's obviously been monocolor, but besides that, it takes a very specific strategy to use it well. And I think that Surge Broly is definitely that strategy that can use Warp Lands very, very well. Let's just say, for instance, you want to charge mono green turn 1. That gives you access to Demigras Unison on turn 1, then your Frieza Charismatic Villains online. And then maybe turn 2, you charge a red, you could play Piccolo Jr. Eradicator of Peace. By that point, you've comboed a red and a green card during, you know, your turn or your opponent's turn, whatever the case is. And then on that third turn, or even maybe that second turn, depending on how the game is gone, you can charge that Warp Land, and it hasn't like made you sacrifice your turn 1, which I think is actually a really cool thing the deck has going for it. The only thing that kind of conflicts with is the red Chi-Chi card that you combo with. You have to have 2 red-green energy in order to let her draw you a card, but maybe you just play 3 copies and hope to use that more in the later game as opposed to the early game. But you guys get what I'm saying. I think it's a really cool strategy to use the Warp Lands. I think with some appropriate hits on the ban list, this is a strategy that can really, really step it up. Next up, we're looking at Supreme Kai of Time, the Chrono Keeper. Now, I do think the strategy is cool. I do think it has a really, really bad blue matchup, which is pretty unfortunate. But I do think it's neat how this deck can really be like a low to the ground, swarmy, overwhelm, aggro-ish strategy because of her Unison giving you Wormhole, right? So with that in mind, you can play a lot of battle cards per turn for free, get a lot of swings off. But this thing is, the gatekeeper to this archetype being good is really 2 things. One is Vegex, so obviously a lot of people are pushing for that leader to be banned going into the set 14 ban list, and if that happens, that kind of like area where low to the ground swarmy black decks live is going to be open for a new strategy to come in and become the top dog, right? So that could be maybe Supreme Kai of Time, that could be maybe like SS4 Goku. Like there could be a lot of things that fill that role if Vegex was to be dealt with appropriately. But the other thing too is if Blue Baby is addressed on the ban list like a lot of people think it should be, that's also another really solid thing for Supreme Kai of Time, the Chrono Keeper. Not saying that blue will be like unplayable when Baby goes away, but the strongest blue deck will have been dealt with, which will obviously open up a lot of room for this deck to breathe. So I do think it's a really cool one going into set 14, again, if the ban list is done appropriately. And then finally, guys, I want to recommend Gogeta Xeno to you. I just did a video the other day talking about this strategy. It's getting a lot of support in set 14. Not exactly like direct support, but there are more Gokus and Vegetas you could possibly play in this deck. And again, if Vegex is dealt with appropriately, that black swarmy aggro kind of role is going to be left open. And Gogeta Xeno is possibly one of those decks that can fill that role. Like S3 Gogeta, Thwarting Dark Empire, yeah, it's definitely being gate kept by the fact that it's super, super expensive, but being a 1 energy and doing everything that it does is absolutely insane. I could definitely see this stepping up big time if Vegex is dealt with on the ban list. But anyways, guys, I did just want to let you guys know my thoughts on these couple of decks. Let me know in the comments below what you think about the video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.